then 12, though, I got into poetry writing. So I would write these poems and tape them on the wall by my bed. And I had like 35 poems that I would make everybody read. And so that kind of got me into the rhythm of, later writing songs. Poetry and rhyme has always been very, very close to my heart. And then, we would do some writing with Bob as well, parodies and original funny songs, that kind of thing. So
great. Oh, that's wonderful. How you doing, everybody? My name is Dean Olson. I am a songwriter, radio host, and producer from Orange County, California. And I'm really just an average guy that likes to make music. But when I get behind this microphone, I become the StrongWriter on the radio, helping songwriters and artists keep musically fit. And the way I love to do that is through faith and hope and encouragement, by taking in the stories and experiences told to me by my wonderful guests, and by learning from the best in the business and passing it along to you. And now it's another very beautiful day for a fantastic show, and I want to welcome you to it. And today I'm going to break with the musical format, basically, to bring you another sort of a spin-off of my show, which is StrongWriter Off the Chart, where I do celebrity interviews. The woman you're seeing on the screen with me right now, if you're watching the podcast, it is writer, author, and playwright Martha Bolton. She will be forever the one who wears the title of the first woman staff writer for Bob Hope. And that's an occupation she held for about 15 years. And she has been nominated for an Emmy and garnered several other awards. And her latest project is a book which is titled, let's see here, Dear Bob, Bob Hope's Wartime Correspondence with the G.I.s of World War II. Always have to have a long title when you're selling a book these days. I noticed that. And her latest project is this book with an association with Bob Hope's daughter, Linda Hope. And it is really a true pleasure to introduce you all to Martha Bolton. Martha, welcome to my show. And how are you today? It's very nice to have met you.
Nice meeting you. And I'm excited to be on your show and talk about the book and Bob Hope and anything else you want to talk about.
I'll talk about, let's talk about you for just a quick second, because, what I just introduced the people to, that you worked with Bob Hope, that's a very big deal. And it doesn't hurt that you're one of the firsts. That you're a first woman staff writer. What did you actually do? Were you writing bits or things like that for him, or what was the measure of what you did?
Everything. We would write jokes that he would do in the monologue for both his personal appearances as well as the TV shows, and then wrote the sketches that he would do on the specials, wrote tributes if a friend or a celebrity or somebody in the news passed away, and he would request, to help write a tribute, wrote song lyrics, parodies, just about anything. We once wrote jokes that he had an airplane go around his house with jokes trailing in the background. It was a party he was given.
Oh, this really happened. This is a real thing that happened. My gosh.
Yeah. And then sometimes he would call if he was golfing and, give me some lines. I'm going to be on the, golf course with so-and-so and so-and-so. Give me some lines.
Oh, that's incredible. So it is sort of, he travels with his writers,
Yeah. And it was always changing. So like you'd write jokes and then you'd get a call to write lyrics and then you'd get a call to back to write jokes. And so sometimes your jokes would have this rhythm in it, like a song, because you just got through writing lyrics, and you had to keep them all straight. But he kept you busy. That's one thing he was known for, needing a lot of material and wanting a lot of material. So we would get the topics. He'd call with the topics, and you'd sit down and start writing 20 jokes per topic, something like that. And then you'd drive them to the house. This was before fax machines.
Yeah.
And I lived out there. I grew up in California. So I would drive it. I lived about 20 miles away from him and drive it to his house and then come home. And then sometimes on the answering machine, he'd be leaving a message. When you get done with that, do this. And then I'd drive it back down there.
Wow.
One day I know I made 3 trips because each time I came home, there was another assignment. And it was wonderful when we all got fax machines and
yeah, probably in the 90s, right? Something like that, like the end of the 80s or 90s, something like that. Yeah. But the answering machines at least were around for a while. So you could do that anytime, leave you a message. Yeah.
Exactly. We tricked him into getting one because we all got Bob Mills, one of the other writers, had come up with the idea we all get fax machines. And then when he goes to a hotel and he gives us an assignment, we can all fax our material and get it to him within minutes. And then they could take it up to his room and he'd be shocked to see it there on paper, how quickly he got it. And then that convinced him to buy a fax machine. So then we were set.
Was he open to, getting with the times? Obviously the things when I've always heard that when he had jokes written for him, he insisted that they be, current, up to date, topical, things like that. So
Absolutely.
You knew that they were new jokes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You had to, because the news was always changing. So it made it easy to write new jokes because things would happen in the news that had never happened before. So It's a brand new topic nobody's talked about because it's in the news. Talking about the fast writing, though, there's one of my favorite stories was we had gotten the assignment because he was going to a psychiatrist convention. And so, that was pretty easy writing when we sat down and wrote all this material, got it to him. And when he got to the venue, he discovered that it wasn't a psychiatrist convention. It was a chiropractor's convention. So he called us up and we had to do all new material.
Oh, you had to get on the spot and do it. He
was ready to go on stage. It was like 15, 20 minutes before he was walking on stage.
Oh, wow.
And we had to get all new material.
That is incredible. So what kind of crowds did he go to, like colleges? Because I understand I used to be fascinated with, performers of Bob Hope's caliber or that did TV shows like Red Skelton, for instance. My wife and I are big fans of him. And we noticed that as an older man, when the show was over with, he would go to colleges and speak to young people, I think in the 80s and such. But yeah. I always wondered how that a younger crowd takes to it. Did Bob Hope do similar things like that where he would talk to younger folks?
Yeah, he did. In fact, when I first started with him, that was one of the first things that they were working on was where he was doing a whole college tour. So that was my first experience at writing for him.
Okay.
But yeah, his specials even, he would have the legends on, which was wonderful to, you'd get called into his dressing room to have a line change or something that he needed. And there on the sofa in the dressing room would be Lucille Ball or George Burns or, Milton Berle. I mean, it was just amazing. And they're waiting for you to come up with a line change. And you're like, talk about pressure.
Yeah.
He'd also have the young, whoever was the up and coming hot star who, he'd have them on the show as well. So he always balanced it. He always wanted to stay current, stay relevant.
Yeah.
And he obviously did a good job of it because he stayed current his whole life.
He did. And as far as writing, when you talk about actual jokes that were written for him, if any of them, say, laid an egg, didn't he have the ability to take it and make something good out of it? Or did he reject a joke when he didn't think it was that like one of his that he would like?
Well, it'd be funny because we'd stand on the side of the stage at NBC and watch him do his monologue. And if you had one that played well and it was your joke, you'd nudge the writer next to you and go, okay, that was mine, and they do it back to you. But if one died, then everybody was just quiet. It didn't, but Bob, he didn't come hunting looking for the writer. He would just say he picked wrong. It just wasn't the right joke for that audience, or that moment. And sometimes jokes would come back, and he'd do it at another show, and it'd play great. So
yeah,
you never knew which was going to be the best ones. The ones you thought were going to get a huge laugh would not get as big as one that you thought was going to die, and he'd come.
yeah.
He'd go out and do it, and his delivery was so good, so he could make a joke be funnier than it felt to you when you turned it in.
Yeah, so that's good. So nobody was scared behind the scenes as writers. You didn't
No.
Gosh, I hope this isn't going to bomb or anything like that. You pretty much had confidence, right? Everybody had confidence that you were going to pick the right things that you wanted.
Right, and he would call you from wherever he was performing. If one played especially well, he'd call you and he'd say, "Boy, that was really dynamite. Give me more of that kind of, on that topic or that style or whatever." But he was very gracious to do that. He would always credit the writers, and it wasn't a competitive thing at all.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay. But you all had to be in sort of have the same talent to be quick on your feet with some humor. Did you have to each come up with those things individually, like you and whoever the other one you were mentioning, but other people? Do you all get in a room and start bouncing ideas off each other, or does each one?
The sketches we'd talk those things out in a room there, either at NBC or at his house. But for the monologues, and we would go home and write the sketches, but at the beginning when we're deciding what sketches we're going to be, that would be together. But for the monologues, we'd work alone. We'd work at our house, and you'd turn them in. But we all kind of had his voice in our heads, so you write his voice. Yeah. So you all sound alike because we all sound like Bob Hope. So
you'll sort of step into his head and write something appropriate for what he would say on stage. Yeah.
And you'd know immediately if it didn't sound like him, then that wasn't a joke. And several of us, I wrote for Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers and Bob Hope. I once got introduced at a speaking engagement where they said, our guest speaker wrote for Bob Hope, Phyllis Diller, and Mark Twain. So
how about that? Yeah.
We've all, most of us wrote for other people, but when you're writing, whoever you're writing for, that person or that period when you're writing, they're in your head. So you just have that ear to their voice, and when it's right, when it's wrong. So
was it the same dynamic for all the venues? Like a television show is one way, but if you're going to I understand you wrote for military shows he went to as well. And
right,
and I think it was stated that what were some of the other ones? Well, the personal appearances, and did they all have to be played a different style, or could you do the same kinds of jokes?
The topics would be different because it would be all the military topics of the food, the superiors, the weather, the loneliness, lack of females to choose from, or not enough. All of that, it became, those would be the topics, and what was going on back home, because he would bring home to them. He was home to the G.I.s that he performed for, and so he would, whatever was going on in the news back home that would be of interest, and it was kind of either be glad you're away, or this is what you're missing, so hurry up and come home. So it just took that flavor. And then if it was a personal appearance, then it would be whatever was going on in that town, or again, what's in the news. And so you adjusted topic-wise, but it was still his style.
Yeah.
And wherever he was performing, he still had that same style.
And then the letters that are featured in this book, how'd you get a hold of them? I'm thinking that Linda Hope has something to do with providing these, or that you.
Well, the interesting, it was interesting because when he was alive, and I heard about the letters, I just knew they'd make a great book. And so I talked to him about it. And then he told me to talk to Linda, and we started working on it. And then it got put aside for a while, and we're doing TV shows and continuing on. And then a few years ago, and we had gotten quite a ways into it, but a few years ago, then Linda wrote me an email and said, "Are you still interested in doing that book?" And I was so excited because it's just been something that both of us have wanted to do for a long time. And to see it come to fruition is just, I just like to think that he's looking down and he's very proud, I think.
Well, we can only hope so, because it was quite a life and a career that he had, and it was so much more than just a comedian who was a movie star and telling jokes, and it went far beyond that, and that was I think that's why he was beloved to especially in that type of situation where it was always going to visit the troops and entertain them. And I noticed that the letters, that most of the excerpts I got to see are mainly from, the Second World War. So is that basically what it only focuses on, that war when he went to that?
This one is just World War II, hoping to do, future wars, but this one is World War II. And there's, number one, he's such an incredible American, an incredible person in entertainment. No one can touch what he's accomplished, and so it was an honor to tell all of that, and to give him a tribute, not only for his accomplishments but also his heart. His heart, to me and Linda both, when we were reading the letters, his heart for the G.I.s and their heart for him, it's all through every word, and it's in their own words, but you could tell it was beyond a fan celebrity relationship. They were buddies, and he often referred to them as his sons and daughters. They were his kids.
Yeah, and I believe it. Yeah, when I see the responses he gave to some of these, folks that wrote into him, whether it was the girls in the hut or things like that.
They joke around together, and
and it makes me now. These would be all in his own words. Obviously you were writing for him, but he had to come up with this stuff on his own. So these are authentic. Musings or responses, right?
Oh yeah. I wasn't writing for him in those years, but
because he had funny lines even in some of these letters, I noticed, so that was pretty cool.
And when the soldier got it, and it tells it in the letters where everybody followed him back to his tent or followed him, and they wanted to read it. It got passed around the whole camp. So it was a big deal to get a letter from Bob Hope. And at the height of the war, he was receiving 38,000 fan letters a week.
At that time, it's good grief. That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and it shows you what he meant to them, and that he was the guy to write to, and they could tell him anything that they wouldn't tell other people, but they would tell their buddy Bob Hope,
Yeah, but that's a testament to all of you who wrote for him, because if the real Bob Hope is the man who is writing all this stuff in the letters, he's just as charming and as funny and as sincere when he talks like that as when he's delivering a joke that you were feeding him. It shows that you knew how to get the essence of what that man was and do it appropriately. So I like that.
Well, and I thought I knew him pretty well after 15 years, but I even saw a depth in the letters that I didn't realize how much he did for
Yeah.
for the soldiers, um, and how much he meant to them. It just came alive, and can't say enough about that close relationship. And at that time, it wasn't like today, like we're Zooming and you could do it instantaneously. These soldiers, it would take weeks, months, sometimes even years for a letter to follow them around. And he knew how important that was. And that's why he tried to answer as many as he could.
Yeah.
He always joked in the letters. He would have jokes that he would tell, teasing them. He'd keep them up to date with different things that was happening in his life. And he just kept their hopes alive and gave them a bit of home. In fact, some of the soldiers would, after a show, or if they could get close enough to him, they would hand him their mother's phone number or their dad's phone number and ask him when he got home to call and tell their mom or dad that, Bob had seen them and that they were doing okay.
Oh, wow.
And so when he'd come back, he'd spend hours and hours on the phone just calling their parents. And there's letters in there from the moms and dads thanking them. And sometimes they'd thank him and then unfortunately say that, their son or daughter had gotten killed, and they were the show was one of the last things that they had enjoyed. And so
wow,
he saw a lot of people just before their death,
That's touching. I think even those who follow his career aren't really cognizant. They're not really aware of just how dedicated and how special the man was. That's
exactly.
I'm sure his daughters have, or his Linda in particular has a lot of great things to tell.
Right, and the family, Linda and the rest of the family, Dolores, they sacrificed as well, and just gave out of their heart to let their dad and husband go and do this.
Yeah, I do think about that.
Incredible family, yeah.
So when you say that, how far back do you go with Hope? And maybe you can tell me a little bit about your beginnings, how you got involved in becoming that writer, a staff writer. Were you introduced to him, or did he pick you?
Actually, well, I started in '83, and what had happened was I had read a book by a gentleman named Gene Parrott, and about comedy, and we had a lot in common. He was writing for Phyllis Diller. I was writing for Phyllis Diller. He would roast. Do like a business roasting the director or the president or whoever, and I would do roasts as well. So I wrote him and told him that we had this in common, and he wrote back the nicest letter, and then called me and invited me down. He was a writer for Carol Burnett and a writer for the Mama's Family. So at that time, he was working on Mama's Family, and then invited me down to the studio. Well, I brought a scrapbook that had a lot of my writing in it. I used to write a newspaper column, and I had all of those in there and magazine articles. So I was showing him my work after the show, and so he complimented it and then told me I should be writing for Hollywood, and told me to write a couple of spec scripts for Mama's Family. So I did. I didn't have a typewriter that was working at the time. So for 20 minutes, I went down to the local library and sat there and pounded out a couple of scripts for Mama's Family.
Wow.
Well, I got it to him, and then he got it to Ed Simmons, who was the producer. And Ed called me, and he said he liked my work, and he was going to invite me to pitch some ideas the next season. Well, what happens in Hollywood is the show got canceled in the meantime. It was later brought back, but at that time it had gotten canceled. So I had gone from this high to having my hopes dashed. And Gene then recommended me to Bob Hope. And so he had me try some jokes, and I sent them in to him. And then one night he got them to Bob. And one night we were at a function. And my husband, we came home. My husband took the babysitter home, and it was late. It was after 11 o'clock. And the phone rang, and it was Bob Hope. So
Oh, nice.
it was pretty incredible. Yeah. So he told me he liked my work, and continued to call, and I just kept writing and writing, and then I eventually went on staff, and 15 years later, he
Sounds
retired.
so simple, but when you got that call from him, I mean, were you jumping for joy inside?
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Yes, absolutely. I couldn't believe it. You know, at first, because it was this friend of ours at our church that did voices. So the whole time he's talking in the beginning, I'm thinking it's my friend that knew I had sent some material in, and he was pretending to be Bob Hope. So that, I'm going, come on, I know it's you, and but it was Bob. So
that's incredible.
It was pretty special.
So what year would that be that you got started? Yeah. That was
83.
83.
80, maybe the end of 82, 83, in that range.
Because I was interested. Yeah, so that's the Mama's Family era, like that. You write for other shows besides that, or was that like
that was the one I was gearing toward, and then when I got with Bob, then it just went.
Yeah. Well, now it's time to step up. We're getting in the big leagues again, with the with the legendary.
Really busy too.
Yeah.
If you're really busy, so.
I understand that. I want to ask you a little bit, but just as a tangent, real quick, when you mentioned Mama's Family, what was expected of you? I mean, would you write whatever they threw at you, or were you to focus on a particular character in the show and then write for that one?
Well, it was. I did the spec scripts, which shows, that you could write for that show, and then what he was asking me to do would be to come in and pitch some ideas for the next season, and then hopefully, if he liked the idea, then I would have been given an assignment. Then you go home and then you write it. But it didn't get that far because it canceled. But
yeah,
it was the path though to writing for Bob Hope, which was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So,
well, that show is so your credits on some of those episodes that you'll see rerun in syndication or whatever. Yeah.
On Bob Hope?
No, the Mama's Family, back when you're getting started with that stuff. Yeah.
No, I never went past that. Once I went with Bob, then it was Bob Hope.
Yeah, I was just curious about other aspects of what you used to do, and that led up to that. So that's pretty good. But was it any big deal that you were a girl being thrown in all these men that were writing with you in '83? I mean, even then, were you welcome with open arms into that community?
I really was. They were the best team to work with. I can't. We all laughed. We all worked hard, and we would call each other and bounce our jokes off of each other. And sometimes it kind of tripped you up because they'd give you a good joke, and then as soon as you hung up, you're trying to write your material, and you're like, I'm not going to top that joke. And so it trips you up. But there was no jealousy, and it was
good.
Just supportive. And they really, because I tend to be shy on the shy side, and they would, Gene Parrott and Bob Mills and Cy and Freddie and Jeffrey Barron, Cy Jacobs and Freddie Fox, they would push me to, like, if they needed a joke, well, Martha, you go into the dressing room and you you take it to Bob. They'd give me opportunities. Or if it was a guest star, you go up on stage and talk to the guest star, and they were giving me experience. They were hugely supportive. Really, I felt, like I said, no competition. They were very protective of me, and
That's good. Yeah,
just a real kindness, a real kindness, and creative.
So it's a good shop to work for.
Mentoring.
Then it was good experience. Then I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I figured that if Bob is calling all of you into that house to do stuff, you all must have something special, so that there was not a lot of jealousy, and I like to hear that. So,
and we'd go to lunch together. We'd go to dinners together. And everybody was respectful of your talent, and wanted the best show that we could do, and do the best for Bob. So it was a really good environment.
Good, yeah. I was always picturing that. Sort of like, Maury Amsterdam and Rosemarie always bouncing like, oh, here, I got an idea. But it wasn't kind of like that, was it? Or was it? Yeah, I don't know what it was like.
It was. I mean, there was a lot of laughter.
So it's like a writer's room, everybody getting involved, and we gotta put on a good show for them. Yeah.
And you couldn't wait to share. If you came up with a really funny line, or if Bob just delivered it on stage, you wanted to go, oh, that was mine, or whatever, and they would do it, the same. But yeah, we did a lot of laughing, and when we'd go out to dinner during the break of the taping, we'd go across the street to Chadney's, and the table was a lot of laughs, and then it was great. I mean, what better field can you be in than comedy? It was just a lot of fun.
Good. I imagine that's a good part of your life. I mean, you're an author of some 88 books, and not all of them are in a one niche category. There's humor, there's inspiration, some are fun, there's situational, like insightful books, a la Irma Bombeck, sort of, you have titles like "Didn't My Skin Used to Fit?" and and "Cooking with Hot Flashes," and "Maybe Life's Just Not That Into," and so many more. I mean, and they're not all one, but there is sort of a central theme. You do it with humor and some. I was just curious. I bring up the books because I noticed that you're kind of hot on the Christian literature. Are you a known quantity in that world?
They tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've been around a while, and I've kind of followed my life, because when you're writing, when you're raising young kids, then the books would be for children, and then they get to be teenagers, and then for teenagers, and then you get older, and then it's getting my skin used to fit, and might as well write about the stage in life, So just always stayed busy. I love to produce. I love to write. I just love it. I get up early in the morning, work late at night, and I get so excited when it starts coming. And I started writing in church. I would write plays and roast the pastor. And
no kidding. That's an interesting way to start out. Yeah.
And everybody, they were so supportive, and they all kept, just giving me experience and support and encouragement. And it was really nice. And I just had this drive since I was 9 years old to write. I never thought it would be a career, though. It was just going to be a hobby. I love to write. I had the poems on the wall, and that was just my hobby.
Yeah.
And then life had something else in mind, and little by little, I would send things off. And then I remember when I got my first check from Joan Rivers, I mean, I think I just screamed and ran into the house, from the mailbox. I was so excited. And then Phyllis Diller, the same thing. And they were encouraging. They would write little notes. I did a lot of housekeeping humor and aging jokes for them. And they would write little notes on the side, this is great, or try it this way, or whatever. But they very helpful, very encouraging. Just was a wonderful time in my life.
It shows. I mean, just seeing your face and how you just, you're reliving some of that. And I can tell that this has been a joy to you all these years and you still enjoy it now. So
I do.
Do you show any signs of stopping? I mean, you're writing this book right now. So, I mean, there's more on tap.
No. Yeah. In fact, last night I got up about, I think it was 3 or 4 in the morning, which is typical. And I got this idea for another children's book, and I thought, or a movie. I'm thinking it may be a movie, but I'm writing all these lines down. I just love creating, and it's just so much fun. Yeah,
maybe it sounds like a little dumb question, sort of like a Barbara Walters type question, but where did these ideas come from? Where's all this inspiration come from? Do you have any idea? Yeah.
I think I've always had a kind of a quirk on how you view life, and I'm a people watcher, so I love to watch people, and I'm also an eavesdropper to conversations. So you lock all that in your head, and situational events, and you watch that, and then you ask yourself a lot of times, what if that were to happen, if given this situation, what if, and you just kind of go, especially in comedy, you go to the wackiest extreme you can, and see where it can take you, and you love it when a line or a joke or when it hits, and you're so glad that you waited, and there it is, and you know that that's the line, no feeling like that.
Yeah, it must have been a great feeling when you had somebody like Joan Rivers deliver a line that you had that you were really proud of, and it kills,
Well, and that's what the first time I heard her do one of my lines, I had sent it to her, and I didn't know that I hadn't heard back yet, so I didn't know. And she came on the Carson show and did it, and I couldn't believe it. That was wonderful. It was a great feeling. And same with Phyllis when she would send me back it checked off which one she was buying, and it was so. Those are great times, and I had no idea that I was going to end up writing for Bob Hope. But you look back, and you could see it all. You could just see the whole journey, as this thing led to that thing, that led to this disappointment ended up being this fabulous opportunity.
Yeah.
And it just goes through the whole life. Not that life hasn't been, hard in other ways. We've had, difficult situations in our family with health, and at the same time that, I was writing for him, we were going through challenging times with the health and different things, so that life gives you.
Of course.
So, but that also helps you hone your comedy, because of the hard times. You want to, because your personality wants to look for the hope in it. Like what Bob did for the G.I.s. You try and find, where is their hope? Where is there something you can laugh about in the midst of this? Where's there something that you can laugh or smile?
He's striving to connect with them in a special way, and that's that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. So what is it would be silly for all of us to think that that your life, maybe your career has been great, but everybody has life the curveballs that happen all the time, health, and I've had that as well. The 2020 had some things. I lost my dad in 2020, and yet, so I understand what it's like if you're driven to do something. Life goes on, but there's pain involved, and there's a lot of responsibilities to do during all that time. So it's hard to interrupt this, this run of, have you had to make a decision? Do we slow down? Because if your career is going running very hot, it's a shame to have to stop it in the middle because something tragic had happened, So.
Well, I always worked through it. When I lost my mother, and I was working for Bob at the time, and he, called me, and we sat and talked about moms and what they mean to your life, and those are hard things because I wish she was here to see all this. I mean, she did see it at the beginning of it. Both my mom and dad knew I was writing for Bob Hope and had gone to the shows. But the first time my mom went to a show, I got to tell you. So Bob's out doing his monologue, and my mom's up in the audience. And there's this lady, Bob would tell a joke, and the audience would laugh. But there's this one lady who is clapping, which is fine. It's just cool and very complimentary. But after every single joke, she's clapping, this one single clap, every joke. And then I look up and I see it's my mom.
Oh, no.
So afterwards, we were talking about it, and I asked her, I said, that was cool that you clapped after every joke. And she goes, well, I didn't know which one was yours, and I wanted to make sure I clapped. So
that's
anyway,
great.
That's a cool memory.
That's a great one. Yeah. So were your mom and dad, were proud of what you had, what you were doing. Yeah. And so that's a good, how can you not? I mean, unless they didn't like the guy, that would be so like, how can you write for him? But, he was, that's a pretty cool. I like that story. It's just, and just maybe picturing all those around her. What's with this lady? She's clapping at everything,
He even looked in her direction and kind of was like smirking because it got to be kind of funny because she was, it was after every joke, but that was really sweet. That's
great. Well, when your mom had passed and he and Bob is talking to you, was there a little bit of comfort in that? Just that he.
Number one, just that he would take the time and call me and then to not be in a hurry. I mean, we talked quite a while. He shared, how hard it was when he lost his mom and how, what moms mean to our lives. And his mom was real encouraging to his career. So I'll tell you another story.
Please.
When one of our sons was in junior high, he had an assignment to write about a famous person. So he decided to write about Bob Hope. And he, researched him, did his report. And then he asked me, he said, do you think Bob would let me interview him? He's in junior high. This is a junior high school report. And I'm trying to figure out how to answer that because you don't want to break, his little heart. But then also it's Bob Hope, to do a junior high school report.
Yeah, it's tricky. There's something involved.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. So I said, well, I'll call the office and ask. So I called the secretary. I figured she would handle it, screen the call, to let him down easy. And so anyway, he talks to the secretary. She calls up Bob Hope, and he takes the call and lets him interview him for 15, 20 minutes for a junior high school report. Isn't that amazing?
And he didn't have to do that, just because it's you, because it's your son. But that's incredible. Yeah.
He was just a nice guy. He had a heart. He really did. I mean, you knew he was funny, but he had a huge heart.
Yeah. Just listening to all this talk, other people can appreciate just how great, maybe they didn't know that much about Bob Hope, but I'm sure they'll fall in love with him just hearing how you talk about him and just reading the letters that he wrote to all these G.I.s and military men and women. And it's a lot of it's a labor of love. I'm sure it was. It looks like it was very easy, just throw those things in there. But was it harder than it looks to put together this book? It sounds like you got to do it in a very special, and you got to do it right the first time.
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was never frustrating work. It was a high honor, and you knew it was. And I just wanted to tell that story, that part of him. That, like I said, that we know about his career, but that heart that made him so giving, he's in entertainment. He is probably the most giving, or was in entertainment. He couldn't do enough for all sorts of causes. He just.
And he covered all the bases too. I mean, who doesn't, everybody I know, I grew up with watching him. Who doesn't know who Bob Hope is, unless the kids are not in tune with it nowadays. But it's been, he was the man for how many years was that? He did that for like, how long did he have a career?
He was with NBC for 60. He did the military for 50 years.
Yeah.
He holds the record for the longest contract with a network in history. He holds the record for hosting the Academy Awards.
Right.
19 times more. I mean, he collected these records. It was always breaking records. Pretty incredible. It just, and both, everybody liked him. It didn't matter if you were conservative, liberal, whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was honored by presidents, Democrat presidents, Republican president, just honors and honors and honors. In fact, so many that he was going to have a museum, but what they've done is spread them out over several museums and just different displays and artifacts in all of these museums. But he rose to the top of radio, television, movies. He was Broadway. He did it all. I don't think there'll ever be another person like him that can accomplish what he accomplished.
Right, and rightly so. There's only one. So, what was Linda's involvement with? What was her role in putting this book together with you?
Well, definitely, that the depth that she knew about the letters and that she knew about her dad, and so all of that guidance and that time. And we wanted to make that time come alive in the book, to where we put you in that time period. The pictures, there's pictures from her dad's, that collection that many haven't been seen, and just all of that. The providing the letters, and we'd go through and find out, which ones are the best, and which. Can you imagine how many choices we had? And they were all so good. It was so hard to decide which ones would make it in. But
there even could be more to it. There could be sequels to this book, right? And you have it in you. I mean, if you wrote so many books, I'm amazed at the what's a good word? What's another word for prolific? That sounds like an overused term, but you can crank them out. And I understand that you have an idea to do, maybe I have an idea. What if this happened? Some kind of scenario. And I believe I could come up with something maybe for 5 minutes, but to write an entire, however many pages a book is that you do, that's quite an undertaking. You must have quite an imagination, or the wheels are always turning when
the wheels. It's hard to turn them off at night.
Yeah.
And you just lay there, and so you keep a pen and paper next to you.
Yeah.
You got to write it down, or you lose it, and you write down pieces of ideas, and then after a while you get enough in this one idea to think, okay, well, I'm just going to jump on it and go. And sometimes you get those nights, and this goes way back to when I would write plays and short plays and different things. But you get that one night where it just pours out of you, and you can get so far in the project. I love those nights, and I don't know, they don't always come, but those nights, they come often enough that you can depend on them. There's going to be that night where I could just either finish the project or get really far down the road.
Yeah. Just speaking for myself, I'm just an observation. It just seems like that's truly a gift from God, and that it's really the responsibility of you on earth to know that, to harness it and to do something with it. And I like that you're taking your talents and doing something very good with them. So that's a special thing. Not everybody can do that or is up to the task, but you are.
Well, Irma Bombeck said, and I believe this too, is that when she gets to heaven, she wants God to say, "You used everything I gave you." Yeah. So if we all live our life that way, that, whatever talents or insight, whatever he gave us, if we use it till there's not a drop left.
That's great. I hope you didn't mind. I think I did drop her name earlier as a comparison. I hope you didn't mind that I compared you a little bit to that. Just the titles of the books, not having read any of these that I saw on a list. I mean, they're great titles. So that there's got it. Just the concept is alone enough to draw you in and say, I got to read what this is about.
I am kind of known for my titles, and people have told me that they like all the titles. But Irma was another influence in my life, and I loved her writing. And in fact, I wrote her as well, and she wrote me back really encouraging letters, and just was a connection. And one really cool thing was, I remember having written her as a fan and as an early writer, and that she gave me this encouragement. Years later, fast forward, and I'm at her writing convention, speaking at the Irma Bombeck Writers Convention, sat at a table with her children. From here and to get there, pretty mind-blowing to me, that I had found that, her encouragement, I didn't let it go to waste.
There is a similar sort of a philosophy or whatever. It seems that just based on those titles, once again, but it seems like they're a little self-deprecating, more poking at one's experiences and having fun with yourself, and just being, learning to laugh at your all the faults and things that we all go through, and it just seems like that they're very relatable. I bet you. When I don't Absolutely. Know how do you know that your books are doing well? By sales, or how do you know? Do you ever get any feedback on how good your books are?
I do, and that I don't. I'm not I don't look at that part of it that much, but what I look at is the letters that come in, or the feedback that you get. Those are, or somebody comes up to you and says, I read this and or this got me through this period in my life, and those are the rewards that I just love. I mean, that just sends chills down your back.
Do you do the tours regularly to sign books and to speak about what you've done? And I love this. I'd like to hear something. I love when you make that face, because I know I'm going to hear something great. So I'm ready. I'm buckling up here.
One of my book signings I had early in my career, and not a lot of people came, except this one reporter shows up.
Oh no.
So the headline the next day was, "Author's hand gets rest at autograph signing."
Wow.
But anyway,
I wouldn't know how to take that. He's like, what does that all mean?
Well, I thought, those kind of things, they just make a good story. So I like, okay, sure. There's another funny story I can tell.
That's cute. Yeah, because I figured, it wasn't, when I said sales, the more the point I was going for was feedback of letters or something like, do you get fan mail or anything like that?
Yeah, and I've got some that I frame. It's just they're so beautiful that, I mean, it just makes you cry on some of the letters that you receive. I got one one letter from a lady who was putting together a book for her daughter, and so he wanted me to about what success is, and so wanted me to write something out to put that into the book, and so I did it and sent it in. And the daughter wrote me and told me that it really meant a lot to her, that piece that I had written. And then a little bit later, I get a letter from the mom, and she had, the daughter had passed away, running track around the school, and
oh no,
had just passed away. So she was thanking me for, speaking into her life at a moment that meant a lot to her. So,
oh, you got me that
but you
one.
get those. Oh, you get those letters, and like in the book, that Bob's letters, and he said he could hardly read them without choking up. And
Yeah,
it's real life. It's real life when people sit down and write you a positive letter. Or share what they're going through. It's real life.
so
happening.
what we've always suspected, he's not a one-dimensional guy. All those stories you heard about him being warm and caring, that's him for real. He and Dolores were a great team.
Absolutely. When they go through the hospitals, and there's letters from, the guys wrote from their hospital bed, and in certain degrees of traction, and I'm writing to you, in an upside down position, or they're writing from the foxhole, and it's just a wonderful collection of their connection and what he meant to them.
Wow. Just to think of, a huge star, his stardom didn't really, I don't know, it's hard to say. It didn't taint his personality. He seemed to be always centered, and like he could handle it for some reason, because even if the press is being kind to you, you're in the spotlight all the time as an entertainer of his caliber, and to know that his success didn't really change him. That he must have come to grips with that early on, to know that he had a great responsibility when he was doing this.
Yeah, and he had his early struggles too, of disappointment and being broke, and
right. You never saw that, but you
never saw it.
It happens, yeah.
But it just when he made it, it made that so much more special, because I think when you go through things, there's people who don't go through anything, and they're usually sour, and sometimes they're not very kind people. But people who go through things usually have an empathy for others, or they have that understanding. There's a maturing that happens when you go through things, and
right.
I think he had it.
Yeah, and he had longevity. Yeah, that was the nice thing about it. And
yeah, after 100 years, you see a lot.
Yeah,
he had seen just about everything.
So let's see, 83, and so it was only about 15 years at least. That's what was written down, give or take, right? So yeah. So why was it time to move on? Did you find it? Was it time to not be
retired.
Part of that? Oh, was the retirement? Okay, I thought maybe there was. I thought he still had things to do after that, and that you moved on.
Well, he did. I mean, after television, he still had a few things that he did, and you'd get a call once in a while. But he would have still been going. But
yeah, and you would have been probably along for the ride too, if that was the case. You think? Yeah. Why jump off that? Something that's something that's making you happy and everything, right?
Oh yeah. It was sad when we lost him too. Just the world really lost something.
That's getting close to 20 years now, wasn't it? 03, I think that was when.
Yeah,
because he was 100 years
2003.
old. Right? He was born in 03
Yeah.
and he died in 03.
Mhm.
So that was
Wow.
So I'm glad that I'm glad that you were somebody that got to know him, work for him and know the man. So any of your fellow writing staff members, they still around, or have they moved? Have they passed, or are they still alive?
A lot, too many of them have passed, but Gene Parrott is still alive, and Bob Mills is still alive. Doug Gamble is still alive. Phil Lasker is still alive. Some names
we know, some we don't.
Linda, and Gene's daughter Linda, she's still obviously still alive, and
you didn't work with Gelbart though, right? I figured you came a little later, so there was a lot of these seasoned,
but the nice thing about that though is he would be at events, and we all did a panel for the Television Academy, and Larry was on there, and all the writers were there, and he was a great talent.
Yeah, there was some legendary. Who else is like a big name? Sherwood Schwartz wrote from him, right? I think. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of some people. Other people know who aren't familiar with that stuff.
I would get to see those. We'd sit at tables at banquets and at the show tapings and whatnot. So, he was another. He would encourage me, and just special man. Another one people don't realize, but Woody Allen.
He wrote.
Did something for him. Yeah.
Yeah, those are those little stories that I didn't realize that. I remember seeing some documentary on him years ago. So I'm no expert on the people who used to write for him, but it was interesting when I saw Larry Gelbart was one of those guys, and that's where I asked you the question. If a line was bad, could he make it into something gold? Because I thought that was something that Larry Gelbart had said. I thought. But they're and then some of his early, like his first people, they're probably not around anymore. But who was that first guy? Was it Mel Sharvelson or something? I can't remember. I'll butcher his name. And Mort Lockman and some of these people.
Right. They were just wonderful people to hang around at the birthday parties and the events and
so you were you crossed paths with all these people while you were. That's wonderful to know. It's a little overlap, the old guard and the new kids coming in and doing things. So
and they were just so nice and helpful, and we'd see each other there. We'd sit together and talk. Did
you get to hear war stories, literally war stories? From the old days. Yes.
And the whole time you're thinking, man, I wish I, could be taking notes or something, because they were fascinating. They had so many stories to tell, and they would all tell them. It was just such fun. What a group of guys. I remember toward the end, it was funny that we had this one meeting at Bob's office, and then they all, and everybody was getting up in years and whatnot, and they all come in, one at a time, and each one had a story about their doctor or their knees or their. It was just funny to listen to all of them, and they do it funny. So they talk about.
Everybody had that similar vein. They were all funny people. Yeah.
And then you had Bob there, in his 90s, so it was just I just loved it.
And everybody had the same. They did all the different things like you did. So they, personal appearances, anything, or did they focus? Yeah. So they all got to do the same different things that he would do. Yeah.
Yeah. We'd all. We'd be on the phone every day. It was just about every single day. And you'd get the assignment, whatever it was, and it was always changing. And then we'd all go to work. And the exciting times too were when we'd have the taping, because then we'd all be together. And then everybody was there, all the, like you said, Mort Lockman and Mel Shabelson, all of them would be come to the shows, and we'd all interact. We'd all be in the green room together, and there's so much joking around and so many laughs. Really, really miss all that. Those are the good days.
They seem to be, yeah. That's now you get a little peek into why I do a show like this. I like to hear people telling stories about that, because it's on the record. I can hear. How else can I be in that room with all those people, all those legendary people, is to be through you. So that's nice.
We did arrange a writers reunion and had it at Gene's house, and that was fun to see everybody. We're great friends. Kind
of an informal ceremonial. Let's all get together and have a great
and remembering,
reminisce.
telling all the stories, and remember this time and remember that. And,
well, you were a part of a special club. I mean, sure you were the only woman. That's exciting too. But just that you were all, you can all say that, hey, I was one of them. I did all this stuff, and
then we all knew.
There's sort of a camaraderie,
Right. We knew what it entailed. So we could talk about that, because if I was up at 2 a.m. writing material, so were they, at their house. And we just knew that experience of what it was like, or Bob would call us. And there's another funny story where because he would call it wherever time zone, whatever time zone he was in, not realizing what time it was where we were at.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd get it at all hours of the night. Well, this one night, Bob calls one of the writers, and he was asleep, but his wife picked up the phone. And so Bob said, "Is your husband there?" And she looked over at her husband, sleeping soundly, and it had been an especially busy week, and she just didn't have the heart to wake him up. So she thought for a moment, and then she said, "Well, no, he told me he was going to be with you tonight." So there was this pause. And then Bob said, "Oh, yeah, here he comes now."
These little things you can't, you couldn't make the stuff up, I guess. These things, little things happen.
Yeah, he was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Everybody joked around. Everybody, we just all joked around and
good.
Always had a good time, made work fun.
Well, how nice that you were part of all that, and that you're still paying tribute to it even now in this book. So I'm glad I got to know you through this, and that I hope everybody gets to check it out. How are people going to? What's the best way I can promote it? Like, is there a website, or should I say that Google it and find your book on Amazon? I don't know what to say to people. What will I do for them?
Yeah, it should be just about everywhere. I mean, I've been looking up, and like Barnes and Noble has it, Amazon has it listed. They can go to the publisher too, the University Press of Mississippi.
Of Mississippi, okay, I saw that. University Press of Mississippi. Okay, great. Well, I'll make sure that I put the links. I just was. Some people have a different way that they would like people to so just in case it's a publisher's choice, of what to do. But it's yeah. I mean, I'm only ending this because I don't want to end it, but it's I want to respect your time. I think that you've been very busy now that it's time to hatch this baby. Everybody's going to get to see it. So
it's been an exciting journey, and been waiting for this day to come.
Yeah,
and just got our copies of the book a couple of days ago, so it's pretty exciting to see it in print. Yeah. And
not to pry. So you were talking about your family. Are you still? What's your family life like? Are your husband still around in the house?
He is. We're talking about the challenges of 2020.
Yeah.
I have a grandson that had about 3 years ago was diagnosed with kidney disorder.
Really?
And,
How old is he?
He at that time was 17.
Okay.
It's just, yeah. And then within probably 4 months, or something close to that, he had total kidney failure.
Oh, how
and
terrible.
had to go on. He wanted to join the military. That was his dream out of high school. And this was just a couple of months before graduation. So he's been going through, the dialysis and waiting for a kidney. Then if that's not bad enough, then right in the middle of that, he gets also diagnosed with a very serious heart condition.
Oh.
So then they couldn't do the kidney transplant until the heart got taken care of. So he had 2 heart surgeries in 2020 and then multiple surgeries moving the dialysis port around. So he's really had a challenging few years, but keeps a great attitude. And
okay, so he's still hanging in there. He's still
hanging in there. Yeah,
good for him. Wow.
Waiting for the kidney transplant. The day after Christmas, I was walking into the kitchen and didn't see the dog leash, and tripped over his leash, slammed into the kitchen floor, broke my right arm, the humerus bone, which is apropos, but broke it in 2 places. Got a plate and
oh no,
3 screws and 6 pins had to get put in.
Well,
Life's fun. You gotta laugh. And
yeah, well, it was the humerus, and that sounds appropriate. You had the humerus bone. My gosh. Yeah. So yeah, we all have our things. I'm very sorry about your grandson, but I'll pray for him. I really want him to be.
Thank you.
It's tough.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you real quick if you. Oh, that's him. Can you see him?
Oh, he's right there in that picture.
Yeah.
I did warn you. I did want to ask about the pictures on the wall. I had no idea this was an issue. That's there he is. Who's with him?
That's my husband.
That's your husband. So he gets to be part of the show for finally.
He's a former retired policeman.
Oh, really?
And he was in the ROTC. This is where he was. Like I said, he was wanting to join the military.
Yeah.
And then over here, can you see this one?
Yeah, it's a little glary. What's the?
This is Bob and.
Oh, look at this. He's gonna show
you
me.
See?
Yeah, I see him now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay, now I'm seeing it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
the light's coming in there. I'm actually seeing myself in my reflection. So I get to be with Bob Hope for just a second there.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. When was that taken? Obviously, maybe like late 90s, something like that. He looks like
it probably. Well, it may have been.
Just trying to see how old he looked at that time.
Yeah. I don't know. I
pretty
could
nice
find
picture.
out, but
Yeah. Did Bob do that for a lot of people? Do other people have similar pictures where he's posing like that, or was this a special occasion?
This was set up by the company.
Okay.
And Bob and Linda and wanted to get different pictures with the writers.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice though. Yeah. Plus, you have some of your. I'm sorry. I'll talk while you're coughing. That way you can clear your throat a little bit there. I'm having dry mouth too, and dry. It's tough to talk all the time. Yeah, and you got your. Looks like Josiah.
Oh yeah.
One of your books is.
That's one of my. That's one of my. Well, it's a book and a play, a musical, and it's about an Amish man who gets drafted to run for president.
Josiah for president. That's what the name of the book is. Yeah.
And drafted by one disgruntled congressman, talks him into running. And gets him in the middle of this mess. And but it was.
It's a nice concept. Nice. You dream up a concept and you got a whole story out of it. So yeah.
Yeah. It just. I was meeting with our producer Dan Postema, and we had already done a couple of other musicals. And so I I just got that idea, and I thought, I got it. And so I just ran it by him, and I said, an Amish man runs for president, So I went home and started working on a book with it, and then with the thought too that it would become a musical, which it has, and is people really seem to enjoy it.
It is, yeah.
And then those are Home Game is another one, and then The Confession. That was based on, if you're familiar with Beverly Lewis's book.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we've got
just
10,
in name only, but I don't read a lot of those books, so it's like, but it's fun to learn about these things through you. It almost makes me want to go out and check them out now, because as I told you, your titles are wonderful. So,
well, thank you. And we've got 10 musicals that we switch off between 5 different venues. Yeah. One in Indiana, the Blue Gate, and one in Ohio, Sugar Creek, Ohio, and then one in Pennsylvania, and then we've started one in Kentucky and one in Florida. But so it's been fun. The website is Blue Gate Musicals.
Blue Gate Musicals. Okay. How interesting. Yes, you certainly are leading an interesting life, and I like you're using all your talents. One thing that will be a delight to people who are known for me talking with songwriters is that you've done that too. You've written songs, so I thought that was an interesting thing. What was the extent of that art with you?
Well, I still enjoy writing songs, but my highlight of that was when we did a song. Gene and I wrote a song for one of the television specials, and it was called "A Man Is Innocent" was the song, and it ended up being nominated for an Emmy. So
wow.
It was it was pretty cool. It had a big courtroom scene and had a whole bunch of legendary actors in it, and they all sang, and it was a big musical number. So that was the
Emmy. That was the Emmy nomination that I read. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. And it looks like you won you received a nomination for a Dove Award. Isn't that is it not also a musical award?
Well, that was a children's musical.
Yeah.
And it was called A Lamb's Tale. And I
heard of that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
In the thing. Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. This is just a lot of fun. I mean, I didn't want to get too much into that, even though that's what I love to do. Is I figure we probably talk for a long more time, but it seems to stem back from your talent for writing, and as you said, as a young girl, you wrote a lot of poems or poetry, and so that
right.
was there is an overlap there when you make songs, with poetry.
Exactly.
Not every poem can become a song, but if you know how to do it, you can.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And I would tape them. I was, I started at 12. I would always date it and say how old I was at for the poems. Like I said, my earliest writing was 9 with a little book called No Fun Being Young, which I still have. I still have that little book. And the poems would just, I had, I think 3 rows of them, and it just covered all the whole wall on the side of my bed. And that was my collection. I can look back and then you see, well, that's where I was destined to go. But at the time, it's just, I just enjoyed writing poetry. But
was most of it private, or did it see the light of day in any of your books and things?
Well, a few of them I've, or like high school writings, different things are in my 20s. I have taken and looked at it again and worked it to where I could publish it in books. And my newspaper columns, those ended up in books later. I mean, you have this volume of material over the lifetime that you could do different things with it. So, and a lot of, it's poetry, or it's a book, or it's an inspirational piece. And there's all sorts of places that you can let that travel to.
I was always curious about what it's like for you as, as a writer, just to, it seems like, the way you describe how you would get ideas and you just go with them. But are there times where you are like some of these characters I'll see in the movie, they're writing something, they go, oh, that's a bad idea, I'm throwing that in the trash. And I said, did you have things like that? I mean, did the ideas come, and then if it isn't working out, you just don't go with that and you go another direction? And
yeah. I mean, you do have to know when to cut something. You have to be a good editor and a hard editor on yourself.
Yeah, you're self-aware. You know what to do. Yeah.
I don't do the throwing away. Yeah, I don't get mad at my writing.
Oh, you good? That's good. That's good.
So unless if it's horrible, I don't waste the ink on it. I don't put it down on paper. But you don't want somebody to find it years later and say, boy, this is horrible. But you try to make it as the best that you can, and then put that on paper. When you start, say, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you start at a 7, then you start polishing that 7, you can get up to a 10. But if you put a 2 down, you're just going to get discouraged and not try.
And I take it you're not into making any lukewarm projects. You strive to do the best work you can, right?
Absolutely, I try, and
like a 2 is not acceptable. You gotta go up. You gotta go up.
No, and you learned that with Bob is you didn't want to turn in a 2 because of the possibility. What if he gets up there and says it and it bombs? You don't want to be the one saying, "Oh, that was mine," But
would you be comfortable? Sorry to talk over you. Would you be comfortable turning in a 7 to Bob, or you need to get it all the way up to the top, though? Yeah.
Because you need that kind of ebb and flow in a comedy monologue. So a 7, and then an 8, maybe a 10, and then a 9, and then, so it's a little bit like that.
So there is a natural a lilt to everything that he's doing. Yeah. So it feels like, so it's not like bang bang, everything's high energy stuff that he's delivering. Yeah.
Right.
That way it seems normal.
Exactly. Yeah. And the audience needs that space to breathe a little bit too. If it's all this huge laugh, then the next joke's probably going to suffer because they're still laughing at this one and they don't quite hear the next one. So you want to do a little bit of that. Yeah. But you want to keep it 7s, 8s, and 9s and 10s. You don't
most of these things were just short bites of like little jokes, right? They weren't like longer stories that people were writing for him, right? It was all, bang, setup, joke, thing like that.
Right. Yeah, it was there were one-liners, most of them. Once in a while, you could get one that would be like a 3-sentence joke, a little bit longer if it needed it. But you didn't want to have too much of a setup before the laugh. And they called him Rapid Robert, and especially in World War II. And he would do 6 jokes a minute. So, and real rapid fire. And so, you can't have a long joke that takes a lot of explaining for the audience. He wanted it boom, boom, boom. And the topics, ideally, you would pick topics that didn't take much explaining. Either they had heard it in the news already and knew the story behind it, and then he could joke about that, or it took, half a sentence to explain it, and everybody got what the topic was going to be about.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the times I saw him on film or on TV, the routines he would do. It was always like that. But there was something to be said for the way he delivered that, because, if you're doing so many in a row, they didn't seem repetitive. There was always that rhythm that he had, but he could sort of he could slow the rhythm down for the next 2 or 3 jokes and then come up some more. And I don't know.
Exactly.
Maybe I don't know if I don't know if he plays off the energy of the people, laughing at the jokes and laughing at what he said.
Well, that always helps a comic. If you want to see a good show, laugh, because that just, it helps the comic.
You're only encouraging him, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So when the audience doesn't laugh, then the comic starts hesitating and not giving you the best show, because now you got all that flop sweat going on, and there's it's you'll get your best show if you're a good laugher and really encourage it.
Did he ever work blue at any point because he wasn't always on every single crowd was not the same that he was appearing in? Did he ever go any farther than that, or was he always very clean and very respectable?
Very clean and family oriented, and he just had his standards and he knew his audience, and not that I saw.
That's good to know. Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes you'll raise an eyebrow when you find out that somebody who was clean did a little bit, got a little more risque with when he was in front of a different audience. So what you see is what you get, I guess, huh? So all the not much you can.
It's who he was, who you wanted him to be. As far as you hoped that he was that person, and he was.
Yeah. Just speaking for my wife and myself, we just we adore that type of performing. Takes a very special. That's why I was mentioning Skelton as an example. He had a similar thing, because he had a bunch of writers, and he would always how it always was. If a joke was kind of fell flat, you didn't know for sure if it really did or he was just pretending it was a bomb. Because when Bob also knew how to play off an audience like that too. If he could hear the lull in that crowd, he knew what to make a face. Carson did that too. I know. It was. I just always enjoyed that part of it. That's the part that always made me laugh. Is when he sees something didn't play. When he sees that. So he must have. There's all those years probably performing in he was a vaudevillian, right? So he probably cut his teeth doing that kind of stuff. So he knew what was what he was in for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you always had your savers after, if something bombed, then you topped it with this and topped it with that, and then he would ad lib.
Yeah.
So he was good at that.
Sometimes the ad lib is the best part, because he knew that. Yeah. Well, yeah, and he would, and you almost felt you always knew when the joke was written, and then when he said something that wasn't. So it was.
Yeah. And audiences love that when something happens that was unexpected.
Yeah.
And then you get those, instantaneous quips that just come to their head.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that get talked about for years.
I was glad that you explained.
When things go wrong.
Yeah, I was glad that you explained that he wasn't one of those types to come backstage and because who was the one that wrote these terrible. Yeah, but he wasn't like that. He didn't march in and take offense at.
No, and it would have been counterproductive had he done that, because if you get chewed out for a joke that doesn't work, well, you're going to be very hesitant to turn in your next batch of jokes, So, but if you get positive feedback and encouragement, then you're going to just dive into the next assignment and say, "Oh, that it did great there, so I'm going to do this here."
See, so there is proof. Positive reinforcement does do the trick, and
absolutely,
and it can get results. Well, you know what, Martha, I'm just looking at the time. I feel like I'm keeping you, but you are having such a great time talking about Bob, and you were right. You do have a good time talking about it, and I love hearing about it. So it really is. It's an honor to get to hear his stories and through you. And what a great experience. I don't know how else to say it. You've been a great guest, and I'm glad that you came on and took the time.
Well, thank you.
Well, I wish you all the best. I really do. And
thank you.
The book is, what's the long title again? It's Bob. It's called Dear Bob. That's how it starts out. Dear Bob, Bob Hope's wartime correspondence with the G.I.s of World War II. And it is written and compiled by Martha Bolton that you're seeing right here. And what a wonderful woman she is. And Linda Hope, I think she had something to do with it because she's mentioned in it. I always have to throw her in because, I want to make sure that
Yeah, absolutely.
she gets a lot of credit. After all, that's her daddy.
And also another person that gets a lot of credit is Marjorie Hughes. And she was Bob's secretary during World War II. And had she not had the foresight to save these letters and save Bob's response that was put on carbon copy back then, and so there was a copy of what he wrote to the soldiers. And had she not had that, the book wouldn't have been possible.
Oh, no kidding. That's a great thing to say. It's Marjorie Hughes is her name?
Marjorie Hughes.
Thank you, Marjorie. What a wonderful thing that you did. Because somebody had to be the one to do it, and I'm glad that she was there and had that thought to do that.
Yeah, so. She knew it'd be historically significant years from then.
And I'm sure the estate, the whole family appreciates that she did that because
yes. Absolutely. And
we probably didn't even get to see all of them. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty to go around there if she saved them.
Oh, yeah.
So much.
Yes, and they're all at the Library of Congress now. So.
Oh, great. So I suggest you can either Google Martha Bolton and or Google the name of the book, Dear Bob, and it is University Press of Mississippi. That's the thing you'll probably. If you look that up and put all those words in there, you're bound to come up with this. I think I will have a better way of getting you in touch with this book, the audience anyway, so that it's always tough. Books are always tough for me to promote because there's a publisher involved, there's an author involved, there's different moving parts, and I just want to make sure that if there's no one particular website to go to, that they at least know that the book is called Dear Bob. And it's Bob Hope's letters.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Hope that's good enough. I don't want you to be. I don't want to drop the ball on that one. You worked very hard on this, and your career is legendary. Now that I've gotten to hear about it, so it's
well, I think they should be able to find it just typing in it. It seems to be starting to pop up now when you type in Dear Bob. So
yeah,
I think,
let's hope. Let's hope that. Yeah. Martha, how can I thank you enough? You've been great.
Well, it was my pleasure.
I was very nervous because this is uncharted territory. I've never talked about Bob Hope on my show before, and hope I didn't sound like I was too ignorant about.
No.
I have a love for him just like everybody else. So I just sort of come up at the top of my head questions about him.
It was fun. It was fun, and like I said, I love talking about him. So it just one thought would spur on another thought, and so it was very delightful. Thank you.
Well, God bless you and all your family. Your grandson, I will pray for him because that's a terrible thing for him to go through. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see a miracle involved here. That would be great for your family.
Absolutely. That's what we're trusting for, and hopefully get on the other side of this and he can get on with his life. So that would be awesome.
Martha, I'm just going to say goodbye to you now for real. I know that parting is such sweet sorrow, and it's you've had wonderful things to say about him and your career with him, and it's I think we're all better for having to listen to this. It gives me a renewed interest in learning about him through his letters and his correspondence, and you've told some great stories about him. I like him even more than I used to. So this has been a wonderful experience, Martha. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay.
Wonderful talking to you.
I'm going to let you go. God bless you. I'll talk to you another time. Hopefully, if there's a sequel to this book, I'd love to hear about it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna let you go enjoy the rest of your day out there, and you take good care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.